I'm not anti-weight loss. I simply don't think that everyone needs to lose weight or that everyone needs to want to lose weight. Hi, fans, listeners. It's Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, registered dietitian, sports dietitian, and I've got a solo episode for you today here on the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast. By the way, since I have a solo episode, I just want to point out every episode I say, hello, fans. I'm a huge fan of acronyms myself, and FAN, F-A-N, stands for Female Athlete Nutrition. So if you listen to the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast, you are a fan. And fans, I don't really know what the S is. Maybe you're a Female Athlete Nutrition supporter. I don't know. I don't know what the S is exactly, but I feel like it makes total sense. And I want to make sure that you know that, because throughout my journey with business and entrepreneurship, I've got acronyms every which way that I can. And so welcome, fans, to another episode. We've got some great guests lined up for you this fall, but I wanted to do a solo episode where I actually dive into the topic of weight loss, but more because of the recent Netflix documentary that was released. It was a documentary about The Biggest Loser, and the documentary is called Fit for TV, the reality of The Biggest Loser. It was released last month in August 2025, and I finally had time to watch it. It was a 3-episode series, so 3 45-minute episodes. And I'm not going to give things away in this, because if you're interested in watching it, I want you to watch it, and I don't want to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, this happened to Tracy. I never knew it. I don't want to give those things away, because I think the whole point of the documentary was to be, well, as with all TV, shocking and eye-opening, and it was. And yeah, I just really encourage you. But here, let me tell you what I'm going to do in this episode. Because that documentary came out, it just kind of got me thinking how over the years, between the work that I do with clients and some stuff I put out on social media and including this podcast, is sometimes people have a little bit of a misconception that I'm like anti-weight loss. And I think hopefully through this discussion, by the end of it, you'll see that I'm not anti-weight loss, but I'll defend myself later on in this episode. So I want to clear up that I'm not anti-weight loss, but I want to tell you what I am against, and hopefully in this discussion, some of that will come to light. So I am going to do a little critique of the Fit for TV and a critique of really The Biggest Loser first and foremost, and then I'll kind of talk about my views on weight loss at the end of it. And as with all my solo episodes, I literally have a one piece of paper just scribbled with general thoughts that took me 20 minutes this morning before I rushed off to my day with the kids. And now I'm just sitting down and we're flying by the seat of my pants, talking openly to a microphone and hoping that it'll all make sense by the end. None of my solo episodes are scripted. In fact, none of my conversations with guests are scripted. They're just authentic conversations. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know if there's any other content you want. You can go to lindsaycortez.com/podcast, and you can fill out a form if you want to be on the show, or you can fill out the form just if you want to give feedback on the show. So anyways, let's get into today's topic. All right. The Netflix documentary Fit for TV was about the NBC hit show, reality TV show called The Biggest Loser. The Biggest Loser was first released in 2004, and it ran for 18 seasons to 2020. It was a mixture of reality TV and game show. So there was a lot of that type of TV going on in the early 2000s. Reality TV was really becoming quite a big hit, and also game shows where you're competing for a prize. That's what I mean by game shows. So think Survivor. Survivor was huge at the same time, right? You're competing. You've got people or teams competing for something to not just be the glorified winner, but also to win a prize of a financial amount. I think in The Biggest Loser, it was $250,000. And full transparency. You can point your finger at me and think I'm part of the problem if you want to, but keep in mind my age when this was released. I was in high school when the show started. And I, at the time, really thought, wow, what a catchy name, The Biggest Loser, when actually they're winning by losing weight. I thought it was brilliant. But there's also, those undertones of shaming and name calling to people in large bodies and overweight or obese body sizes that we're calling them losers. That those undertones were there, and as you watch the documentary, that'll be very apparent to you. But I do believe, I was in high school when it first started, so I was naive for a multitude of reasons. But I also think the culture was naive at the time. And I know we've got a long way to go when it comes to non-judgmental or shameful ways to approach healthcare, movement, nutrition to all bodies. We've got a long way to go before we have like full acceptance of all different body shapes and sizes and colors and heights and all that stuff. Like, I don't even know, honestly, I'm not going to be the person to preach about this. I don't know what the end goal is. Like, what does full acceptance look like? I'm probably not the person for that. There's other people more experienced or who have thought longer and harder on that. But I know we've got a long way to go still. There's always room for improvement. But I'm just pointing out the fact that I think we're in a different place now in 2025 than we were in 2004 when the show aired, that people were definitely not as accepting. And there was a lot more of the joking, the name calling, and the shaming type of rhetoric, attitudes, and behaviors going on in our society as it pertains to people in larger bodies. So again, even just the name itself, The Biggest Loser, like I was part of the problem. That at the time I thought that was a brilliant name. And I'm realizing now, like, oh, I don't like those undertones of calling somebody a loser. And that's there. That's in that. If you watch the documentary, you'll feel that. Well, anyways, a little bit more about the premise of The Biggest Loser, just in case you never watched it. It was set away at like a camp. Again, undertones and remnants of something like being sent to fat camp, which nobody has good memories of, if anybody's ever been to that. But you go away to a ranch and a camp where you don't have to, deal with your life and the kids and your job and your responsibility, and your sole focus is to lose weight. And the show hired personal trainers, and there's two that became very famous through this show. And I might argue they're less of personal trainers and more of TV personalities, but when they were hired, they were just LA-based personal trainers at the time. That would be Bob Harper and Jillian Michaels. There were other trainers working in the background, but those were the two like head trainers. And those are the two characters of the show, the TV personalities that really, really led the show for all 18 seasons. In fact, Jillian Michaels actually did leave after season 15, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. Something that I didn't really know but learned watching the documentary Fit for TV is that there was a medical doctor on staff. And as you watch Fit for TV, you're going to be introduced to this medical doctor, Robert Huizenga, and he's got a very impressive background. Again, I'll let you make your own judgments as to, how you feel about his quality of work and his involvement in the show. But from my perspective, when I listened to him, he understood the body. He understood the risks of what they were doing on this show. And I felt in watching the documentary that he didn't have much say. I felt that he had knowledge and he wanted to take care of these participants in a different way, but he wasn't really let in on that. He worked for a professional football team. He's got an impressive resume. This guy was smart. He knew extreme exercise and extreme calorie deprivation was harmful. And he was recommending that people eat more. He was recommending people have, 1,500 to 2,000 calories at least while they're exercising so hard. He was recommending for rest and time for the body to recover. And it seemed as though whether it was the trainers, Jillian Michaels and Bob Harper, or the producers of the show themselves, weren't fully letting him in on everything going on in the show. So it almost felt to me as I was watching the documentary that he was just a pawn. Like he was just there for legal reasons of like, oh, we've got a doctor. Or for the person viewing on the TV screen, oh, they've got a doctor there. But I don't think he actually... he had words. He was recommending that these people should be eating more to support their health, but nobody was actually doing it. He wasn't able to enforce his recommendations. That's what I took away from the show. So actually, I felt for him just as things play out, and I'll get to a moment as kind of The Biggest Loser actually started to get a bad reputation. I actually felt somewhat bad that he kind of knew this was coming all along, but wasn't able to have an impact in the way that he wanted to. Maybe he could have done more to stop it. I don't know. Anyways, I was trying to tell you the premise of the show, The Biggest Loser. Contestants came in, they went away to this ranch and camp where these trainers just got into them. They just pushed them. They made them exercise. They made them diet until they lost weight. Every week they had a weigh-in, and the goal was to lose the most amount of weight. And so if you didn't lose enough weight, you actually got kicked off the show. And even that, it's funny, that actually seems counterintuitive. It's like, oh, if you're not losing weight, those are exactly the people that need more help and should stay there. But that's how this turned into a game, a contest, and something that was entertaining for people to watch. They did not mention this throughout the documentary series, but I think there was even like a shift after the first few seasons. I really think in the first few seasons, it was literally based on the number. Like, did you lose 10 pounds or 5 pounds or 20 pounds? Like, it was just who lost the most weight. And I think they figured out pretty quickly, but it did take a couple seasons, that, oh, this should be like a percentage of their body weight, because it's different if somebody comes in at 350 pounds and they lose 20 pounds is different than somebody coming in at 180 pounds. You know, that's not as realistic for a 180-pound person to lose 20 pounds, nor is it, in my opinion, healthy in honestly either scenario within a week. But that's a different conversation. They honestly, what I'm trying to get at is the producers of this show were out to make TV. They did not understand the science of the body and the science of weight loss, even to the point that they didn't even understand, oh, this should be a percentage of your body weight until a couple seasons in. And I'm just going to fast forward here. They did not realize that making a contest over who can lose the biggest amount of weight could become dangerous until season 15, because it was in season 15, their winner, Rachel Fredrickson, walked out on stage at what everybody described as a shockingly low body weight that was scary and unhealthy. That's when some people began to realize, oh, maybe losing the most amount of weight isn't healthy. It took 15 seasons for them to realize that. And what I need you to understand is that's 15 seasons. That's nearly 15 years. At that point, it was like 13 years or 12 years of the message going out to millions of Americans that more weight loss is better. It was over a decade of a message going out to hundreds and thousands and millions of people. Lose weight at all costs. Keep losing. Keep trying to be smaller. That was the message on primetime TV for over a decade. Millions of dollars went into this, and this show became such a huge money-making show for NBC. You know, there were spin-off things, there was merchandise, there were training plans because of this. There was supplements that came out because of this. It was just diet trends, like, oh, do the Biggest Loser at home contest, like so many different offshoots of this for over a decade, based on the premise that it is of the utmost importance and should be everybody's goal to lose the biggest amount of weight as possible. It took until season 15 when their winner walked on stage and everybody actually thought, oh, she looks like too skinny. She looks unhealthy skinny. That was the first time anybody, producers or the trainers, realized, oh, this might not be a good thing. And I find that shocking that it took that long. I find it shocking that it took that long. Now, mind you, it did not take that long for the first person to be hurt by the methods of this show. And that's why watching the documentary Fit for TV will become eye-opening. Right away, they introduce somebody from season 2 who admits that going on the show absolutely contributed to an eating disorder. And one thing that even happened to her, again, I don't want to give too much away, but when she found out she was accepted on the show, she was motivated by her health. She wanted to lose weight for her health. When she found out she was accepted on the show, she started writing to the producers for some advice. What can I do at home to kickstart this process? And they encouraged her not to start making any healthy habits or changes at home. In fact, the bigger she is when she comes on the show, the better, because then that's when she'll have a chance to lose weight for the prize money or for the glory. And she actually ended up intentionally gaining weight before even going on the show and worsening some of her eating habits and her health, I'm sure, before even going on the show. So at the root of this, and what you'll see if you choose to watch the documentary, is that these TV producers did not have an understanding of health. I'm not trying to say that they absolutely didn't care about their participants. I'll leave that up to you to make that decision. But I just think that they didn't understand health. This was a Hollywood producer who had an idea, and he was just trying to think, how do I make more money? How do I make this the most popular show? How do I get people to watch? And so they used tactics of doing challenges that were, embarrassing, having them, get up on parallel bars or something like that. And it's like, that's not what people need to do. They don't need to turn into gymnasts to become healthy, or challenges that would be like, oh, here's a ton of food, and whoever eats the most food can go see your family, which is such a cruel thing to do. These people were away from their family. They missed their family. And yet they know, I'm not supposed to go pig out and binge right now. But if I do, I get to see my family. That is so cruel and backwards. But it, in the producer's eyes, made for good TV. And that's why they did these things. So I'll let you watch the show. But for me, I think that when the show came out and I was in high school, I thought, like much of the country, oh, it's a good thing to lose weight. And thought, wow, this is great. They're competing. They're getting help from personal trainers, from a doctor. The show continued on while I was in college, and I started to have some of my concerns and thoughts about it. And I think it was around 2015 when that contestant came out at what most people would consider underweight, a very low body weight, shockingly thin, that really concerned people. And she was all of them were engaged in disordered eating and exercise habits throughout the entirety of the show. That was the first time. And I was kind of like, at that point, 10, 12 years into it, and me now being a registered dietitian and having this knowledge, like I knew that. At that point, I knew it. But the rest of the country was just catching on that, oh, this isn't the healthy way to weight loss. And so I think for you as a consumer of television and nutrition information, if you want to now watch the Netflix documentary, your eyes will be open to a lot more of the things going on behind the scenes. And I hope that it educates you. Ultimately, I want to point out, and I think I kind of already have, that some of my concerns with the show is like there was very little nutrition advice or guidance in there. It was only the personal trainers giving nutrition advice. I always found issue with that. It was like they talked about food, they talked about their diet, but they didn't actually say what it was that they were doing. They didn't really show them eating too often and realistically what that looked like. And I wonder if it's because it was so disordered. Most of the times it was just them saying, oh, I'm sticking to my diet. I'm counting my calories and I'm eating my fruits and veggies. And then they would do those challenges, like I mentioned, that might involve food in this really cruel, distorted way of having, pizza and cake and cookies to tempt them or whatever. But otherwise, there was no nutrition education. There was no registered dietitian. There was no discussion of, the importance of their protein or the vitamins and minerals. That was really majorly left out of the show. And so that's one of the issues that I kind of always had with the show. Their nutrition information was basically just coming directly from the trainers, Bob Harper and Jillian Michaels. And the message was eat less, really. That's what the message was. Stay away from sweet things and eat less. So that's an issue that I always had with the show. And besides the fact that it's not enough nutrition support, I think I also found issue that it was coming from personal trainers. Quick disclaimer. I think personal trainers of 2025 are more knowledgeable on nutrition than they were in 2004 when the show started, just because social media and Google in general, like there's just so much more nutrition information out there that people know. I think personal trainers are more aware. I should have some knowledge on this. Also, from like a career field standpoint, many personal trainers actually have like a bachelor's degree in exercise science, and they've taken a nutrition course or two. Back in the early 2000s or the 90s, like, it was just very easy to become a personal trainer. And you see that as you see how these executive producers found Bob Harper and Jillian Michaels. They were just trainers at like local gyms. They trained some Hollywood or, people, C-list actors, whatever, but like they just were gym people. They didn't have degrees in health and exercise science. So please hear me out. I am not trying to badmouth personal trainers, but there's a difference between somebody who has a career in health and nutrition and somebody who goes to the gym and knows it's important to eat carrots. You know what I mean? Like, so that's a fundamental issue with the show, The Biggest Losers. They weren't aware of the body's physiology, and more so the metabolics of weight loss and obesity. 2004, when the show started, was absolutely a time that people thought weight loss could be achieved through grit and hard work. Eat less, move more. And that's what this show embodied. If you watch the Fit for TV documentary series, you will see that that method did not pan out well for many, arguably most participants, because it is not that simple. How the body responds to diet and exercise is complicated. First and foremost, it's individual. Second, it depends on how long your body has been. Like, have you been in a larger size body since you were 8 years old? Or are you 35 and you just started gaining weight at 30 and now you're attempting to lose weight after just 5 years of gaining weight versus a lifetime of being in a bigger body? Those are two different things. Our genetics play a role, our epigenetics, our lifestyle, how long we've been doing this, not only how long has our body been this way, but how long have our habits been this way? Many people who are in a larger body are so because they haven't yet paid attention to their diet, nutrition, and exercise. And so they can begin to pay attention to their diet, nutrition, exercise, and their body might change. It might adapt to that pretty quickly. Whereas somebody else might have been dieting and attempting to exercise on and off or whatever it might be for the last 15 years. Their metabolism is going to respond very differently than the person who's never tried it before. None of this was taken into account during the 15-year production of The Biggest Loser. None of this was taken into account. So again, that's like my biggest issue with The Biggest Loser as a show. They didn't have a dietitian. They really didn't focus on nutrition. And what people they had in place, the personal trainers and the doctor, the personal trainers, I just don't think had an understanding of this at all. And the doctor had an understanding and was not able to influence the show. He was not able to make an impactful change in the direction of the show. The producers wanted to do it for the views of Hollywood. So at the end of the day, as Biggest Loser was airing, I was getting my education and beginning my career as a registered dietitian, and I became aware this isn't a healthy approach towards weight loss. And around the same time, America's eyes became open to that. Some former contestants from the early season became vocal in news outlets, letting people know, I have an eating disorder because of the show, or I gained all the weight back, or, I was verbally abused on this show, or people were, doing unhealthy things on the show. And it started to become public. Maybe this isn't the most helpful way. And ultimately, that's what led to NBC not continuing the show, was because it started to get bad press. So the show stopped. So with all of this said, that, The Biggest Loser actually wasn't the right way to approach weight loss. It fooled many people for many years, fooled a whole country. But I think I think that message was there before the show. People thought weight loss was just eat less, move more, and you can achieve anything as long as you work hard. That was the message of the early 2000s about weight loss. And so the show gained popularity. People continued. This message was hit home more than anything else. Like that's what this show really did, which I think is terrible, is it told people like the most important thing for you in your life is to lose weight. And I think that's where, as the show's demise unfolded and people began to realize, wait, this is unhealthy, is also when I stepped into my career as a registered dietitian. I'd had all my education training, had my entry level jobs. Like, I am a registered dietitian. 2018, actually, when the show stopped, is when I started my own business. So I had many years of experience under my belt, started my own business. But also I was focused on sports nutrition. And in sports nutrition, I'm not saying weight plays no role, but it's not the focus. Whereas general health and dietitians focus on general health might address weight loss, with sports nutrition, we're just addressing how do you improve performance. And weight might be a part of that, but it might not be. And it's certainly not the number one goal, which is, again, what, like, The Biggest Loser, that was the message, was weight loss, and the most amount of weight loss is the number one goal and number one priority in these people's lives. And it probably should be for you too. That's the message people heard on NBC primetime so often. Whereas in my professional career, I was not preaching that. I was like, no, performance, fuel your body, have energy, recover, build muscle. And so it's like the show was kind of blowing up at the same time that I was like, yeah, I know that. Like, we shouldn't be focusing on weight loss. And I ran with that in my career, and I still do that. My focus as a dietitian is not weight loss, and I do not believe that weight loss is the most important thing in health or in somebody's life. And I think because of that, over the years, some people have misconstrued my message to think that either weight loss isn't important or that they shouldn't even try to achieve it. Like, maybe it's not achievable. And the reason I say this is because I've had some people mention that to me, like, oh, but you don't like when people lose weight. And I'm like, that's not what I mean. I don't mean that I don't like when people lose weight. I think that my standpoint is I don't want to contribute to the societal message that everybody should be trying to achieve weight loss. Because that's what the message was for so long. Even to people who weren't overweight, it was just this, like, assumed, and maybe it still is, that, like, oh, weight loss is good. And I don't want to contribute to that message. Weight loss is not inherently good. It could be for some people, and it could be dangerous for other people. And it could be totally unnecessary for a whole nother group of people. I don't want to be a person who's always promoting weight loss because we've got so much of that promotion out there. I want to just promote nourishing, fueling, and recovering your body. So that's very often why I don't address the topic of weight loss, because I just don't want to contribute to the message that this needs to be done. It doesn't need to be done for every person. Okay, and then the next thing is that even if somebody, for a variety of reasons, like, does feel that they need to lose weight, maybe a doctor told them to. Maybe it's because their BMI category. They're like, I should lose weight because I'm not in the healthy BMI. Maybe because they're struggling to run and they feel that if they lost a few pounds, it'd be easier to run. Maybe because their knees hurt. Maybe because their cholesterol levels and triglyceride levels are high and their doctor said that losing weight would help this. There are a variety of reasons why somebody would say, well, I actually am somebody who needs to lose weight. I know I'll be healthier if I lose weight, or I believe that I'd be healthier if you lose weight. I'm not against you attempting to do that. In fact, I'm very passionate about the power of food and nutrition and movement. That's why I am a registered dietitian. That's why I'm a fitness enthusiast and athlete and do sports nutrition, because I'm super passionate about the power of food and the power of moving your body. So I would encourage you to do those things, to make changes in your diet and your exercise so that you can achieve a level of health that your body deserves. Here's the key thing here is sometimes weight loss helps you get there and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you can pursue health without weight loss. And sometimes weight loss does help you achieve that health. But there's just so much more to it, which is why I take the stance that it's not all about weight loss. That doesn't mean I don't want to encourage people who want to attempt that. You can attempt that. But I think my recommendation to people, though, I got to go back to my notes on this one because I felt like here it is. Okay, here's my notes. Scribble, anyways, is I'm not anti-weight loss. I simply don't think that everyone needs to lose weight or that everyone needs to want to lose weight. That's another thing. Sometimes a doctor tells you, oh, it might be good to lose weight, and you might not want to. You might not be in a place in your life where you can do that because weight is not the only marker of health. It is a contributing factor, but it is not the only factor. It is not the only marker of health. It is not the only factor. And again, that's where The Biggest Loser got this wrong. The Biggest Loser said the more weight you lose, the healthier you are, the more you become a winner, and here's money for that, and here's more fame. Weight is not the only marker of health. You've got your blood biomarkers. You've got your risk factors and family or genetic history like cardiovascular disease or prostate cancer, breast cancer. You've got your muscular health, your skeletal health, and your cardiovascular health, which can be independent of weight. We know you've got your mental health and we've got your spiritual health. And then we've got other like societal things like our financial health or something like that, or spiritual health, as I just mentioned, that are all important too. We're talking about the physical body. There's just more ways to define health than just the number on a scale. And so if you are that person that's like, but I do want to lose weight, okay, I would encourage you to try and define health for yourself without using a number. Just define health. I don't have this is your definition. This is your challenge. I want you to define what you believe health would be for you. And you are allowed to pursue weight loss in part of that process. But I would strongly encourage you to pursue a few more things in pursuit of health as well. What do I mean by that? Okay, I'm going to lose weight, but also I want to learn how to cook more meals for myself. And I want to join a social group for my workouts. And I want to teach my children about muscles and how it's important to be strong. So now it's like, okay, I'm not just chasing a number on the scale. I'm making some changes to my life, my lifestyle, my family. We're going to talk about the importance of being strong. We're going to get in the kitchen and make food together. And I'm going to not do this by myself. I'm going to be surrounded by people that I like and enjoy who lift me up so I can be social and help my mental health as I'm doing this too. So that at the end of the day, what if 3 months later, the number on the scale hasn't moved, but you feel better? Maybe you feel more energized. Maybe you feel happier. And maybe you're setting that foundation of good health for your kids for years to come. I mean, that seems really healthy to me, whether or not the number on the scale has changed. And maybe it has. Great. But we're not only pursuing, because let's flip this in reverse and just hypothetically, if you're only pursuing that number on the scale, then you're like, oh my gosh, well, the social club, the group exercise doesn't meet till 5 p.m. And I can't wait that long. I'm going to get my workouts done in the morning by myself. I'm going to do them fasted because I heard that's better, blah, blah, blah. And now you're training day in and day out by yourself in your basement, alone, super early in the morning, drained, having not eaten. And then because you're so drained by, you're getting quickly irritated by your children and you're doing this by yourself, you're not bringing it into the family, and you're really focused on only you. So the kids can eat chicken nuggets while you measure out your portions of shredded chicken breast on your food scale in your kitchen. Now you might lose. Again, this is all hypothetical. What if you lose more weight doing it that way, but are you actually healthier than the alternative scenario that I previously mentioned? Getting the family involved, cooking dinners at home, doing a social group workout together. And so I don't have a clear cut like, hey, this is what health is, and this is the way you should do it if you're going to lose weight. I want you to think about that. I just want you to define health for yourself. And even if you would like to see the number on the scale go down, I don't want that to be your sole goal. I want you to think of, the goal, actually, let me rephrase that. The goal is health. You need to define that. Losing weight is part of the process for you potentially. And what are the other things that are part of the process? I'm actually mad at myself for not saying this sooner because I say this to my clients all the time. Anyways, I'll say it now. Weight loss is not a goal. That's not the goal. That's not the be all. Weight loss might be a process, but it is not the goal. So the goal is health. And losing weight might be part of the process. I'm still saying might because I'm not going to say it is because it is not inherently for everybody. Weight loss might be part of the process. What else is part of the process? Fueling your body, finding more movement, finding joy in life and contentment and family and finances and job. Like all of that is part of the process. So you figure that out. Don't make weight loss the goal. Weight loss is not the goal. It's part of the process. And again, going back to my key message here is that weight loss is not healthy for everybody. But if health is the goal, then just know okay, weight loss doesn't need to be part of the process, but still fueling my body is, still moving my body is, building muscle is, having fun and finding joy when I do it is. So yeah, I absolutely should have said that sooner in the podcast, but here I go flying by the seat of my pants. Again, is that how the saying goes? I don't know, but I'm just rolling with it that the weight loss is not the goal. Weight loss is not the goal. It's part of the process, but it doesn't have to be part of the process for everybody because it is not the ultimate marker of health. And that is where The Biggest Loser got it wrong. And that is what you will see as you watch Fit for TV Netflix documentary series. And by the way, too, there are contestants who come on the documentary and say, this changed my life. Because for them, losing weight was good and it was a positive experience. These are the people that, I got along with the trainer. They encouraged me. They enjoyed that process. Well, for others, it was torture. Some of the trainers had it out for some of the contestants, and some of that was real and some of it was just all for TV, right? Like the producers liked when there was a big fight and the producers liked when Jillian Michaels screamed in their faces because people liked watching drama. But there were other contestants that had a very positive experience, that they lost weight and were able to keep it off and, learned exercise and were encouraged by the trainers, and that was great for them. So again, we're going back to, I'm not saying weight loss is a bad thing, but it is not needed for everybody. And the process of which you obtain it is really important. And The Biggest Loser just thought everybody was the same. Just keep eating less and work out harder. And not everybody's the same. So I was thinking about this and I'm like, the core of what you hear in the Fit for TV documentary series is that they made a lot of mistakes, and some of the producers might even admit to that. But they stand by the fact that, it was TV. Well, it was good TV. And I would like to argue that I actually think you could make a great TV show, prime time, even though we don't really do that anymore, but maybe on Netflix. Maybe Netflix should try and do this. About, I don't know if it should still be about weight loss, but it can be, that's in a healthier way, where it isn't just about winning the most amount of weight loss, but where it is truly about transforming people's lives through bettering their health. And I really think they can do it in a way that's entertaining. And if I were a TV producer, here's how I would do it. First and foremost, I would include nutrition in there. I mean, think about how popular cooking shows are. There's an entire network, the Food Network, dedicated to cooking. And, the Great British Bake Off and Iron Chef. There's so many cooking shows. Why didn't they include cooking and prepping food into some of the challenges? They should have done that. That would have been fun. I can see it even being funny if, people aren't very good at cooking, or, maybe the challenge is to use this really like an endive or something like really unique. Most people don't eat, and that they could educate through there. Okay, maybe nobody likes endives, but here's the importance of, leafy vegetables. And so there'd be education thrown in there. There'd be challenges of cooking and competing, but there'd also be truly nourishing their bodies, right? In a healthy way, because they're not just extreme dieting. They're learning how to cook and prep food. I think those could have been great challenges that would have made for entertaining TV. I also think when it comes to the exercise piece, it would have been really entertaining to do some exercise challenges that wasn't just like extreme exercise or like in the gym. So during The Biggest Loser, most of the exercise was in the gym setting, like on treadmills with dumbbells. And they did a few other challenges, but they were all like extreme and scary and like dangerous. Like, let's make them zip line, I'm rolling my eyes at it too because it was catering to the idea of like putting them in an uncomfortable position to where the audience would also be like shocked at what was happening. But I think they could do exercise challenges that were more realistic, like to life. And just like I'm thinking of fun things. Like let's say one of the contestants, I don't know, works at like some sort of factory or a plant and, with heavy machinery or boxes. And like maybe there's something of like, all right, this is a day of work. Who's gonna, these are 50-pound boxes. Who can lift the most of them in X amount of time? And it's an exercise challenge, but it's related to real life and movement and function that they actually need to achieve. Stair climbing things, or heck, I'm just sorry, I'm the dietitian, so I always think of food, but I'm like, oh, grocery store, what is that show called? Supermarket Sweep, where people are running through the aisles as fast as they can. That's a different game show in order to like tally up their tab and win money. But I don't know. I'm like, that could have been some form of an exercise challenge to get them moving that was like, worthy of entertainment, but also like kind of applicable to real life of like going up and down the aisles with your cart or, stairs or a job, a function type of thing, as opposed to just all the exercise being like hitting the treadmill, lifting the dumbbells, which I like treadmills. I like dumbbells, but that's not the only form of exercise. Obviously, I think that this show should have had a psychologist on there, mental health coach, not just relying on the personal trainers. And I get it. Like personal trainers, become your cheerleader. Sometimes I, as a dietitian, feel like I become a life coach to my clients. But like at the end of the day, I don't have a therapy license. And I let my clients know that when we're kind of on the edge here. And I make sure that I'm making those referrals and recommendations. Same thing with this show. They needed a psychologist on board and they didn't have that. Why wasn't there a psychologist? That's when the viewers, would have gotten those heartwarming stories or those things that brought them to tears, those things that really captivate an audience if the participants were willing to have that captured on TV. But, and they could have done that, here's a meeting with a psychologist, while we're outside on a hike, taking a walk, connecting with nature. And then you'd get a better view of health this way of, yeah, it's a TV show and we're trying to make it entertaining. We're trying to have contests and games, but also we're pursuing health by cooking, by moving, by putting this like realistically into our daily lives with things that we need to do. I need to be able to lift this box at work. I need to be able to go up the stairs with my children, and making it more realistic, and also making sure that we're using positive encouragement. So with these challenges, like if they win it, whereas in The Biggest Loser, it was like, oh, eat this food that brings you away from your goal, and then you get to see your family. It shouldn't be that way. It should be who can make the most delicious meal with endives, and whoever wins gets to see their family. That's encouraging. That's using positive encouragement, not negative, right? That's bringing them closer to their goal so that even if you lose the challenge, you've gotten closer to your goal. Even if you lose your challenge, you've gotten closer to your goal. There should have been way more positive encouragement. And I think the show can be redone. We'll have to come up with a new title for it. But I think it could be redone. That's what I would do if I was a producer of a show, something along those lines. All right, if anybody wants to hire me, if anybody wants to take this, please give me credit. Bring me in as part of the show. I'll be the dietitian. I'm ready for it. I'm ready to be on TV and be the dietitian. Let me know. Let me know when you want to start filming. I would be super interested to hear your thoughts, both of The Biggest Loser as a show and of the Fit for TV documentary series on Netflix. And at the end of the day, I want you to know, as a registered dietitian, I'm passionate about nutrition and how it can benefit your health. I'm not anti-weight loss. I simply believe that health is more than just weight, and that not everybody needs to pursue weight loss, which unfortunately, nutrition and weight have been so strongly linked. And it's also been that losing weight is a good thing through extreme dieting. That's been strongly linked. And that's why sometimes I can come off strong in a way that kind of seems like anti-weight loss or like anti-calorie counting, because it's just like I'm trying to make sure we uncouple those things. I'm trying to make sure that we don't just assume less food and weight loss are always good things, because it's not. But what is always a good thing is nourishing your body and moving your body. Those two things are good. And we need to learn how to do that with balance, no matter what our weight is, regardless of our weight, and regardless if our bodies are in transition and gaining weight, losing weight, or being in maintenance. I believe the pursuit of health is a valid one. And I do believe that food and movement are included in that. And it is okay if some people are trying to lose weight, maybe even it's recommended, and just know that that's not the ultimate goal. Health is the goal. Weight loss is not a goal. That's part of the process in your pursuit of health. Thanks for listening. This was fun to do a solo episode. Head to lindsaycortez.com for more information, resources, and of course to listen to past episodes. lindsaycortez.com/podcast has all of our podcast episodes as well as other resources on my website in general. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Please help spread the message of empowering female athletes to be fierce, fit, and fueled by giving this podcast a 5-star review and leaving a comment. You can also help more female athletes by sending this episode to a friend. Head to lindsaycortez.com for more resources, information, more episodes, ways to work together, downloadable guides and ebooks. And if you're interested in becoming a guest on the show or have a guest suggestion, head to lindsaycortez.com/podcast, and there's a form for you to fill out to get on the show. Hey, there's more resources on my YouTube channel, Female Athlete Nutrition, Instagram at female.athlete.nutrition, and private Facebook group, Female Athlete Nutrition. I think you get the point. I'm here to support female athletes by fueling better and becoming fierce, fit, and fueled. Most importantly, if you need help, reach out. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next show.